Hello and welcome to Moving Communities. Moving Communities is the new monitoring and evaluation process for the National Leisure Recovery Fund, which is providing some funding for nearly 1,200 sport and leisure centres in England. And as part of the team that have been brought together from this, Simon from the Sports Industry Research Centre is with us. Now, Simon, just give us a quick intro. Tell us sort of who you are, what you do and why you do it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Hello, everyone. I'm Simon Shibli. I head up the Sport Industry Research Centre at Sheffield Hallam University, and I'm lucky to lead a team of 18 highly committed, dedicated researchers, and we work on a variety of research projects for numerous clients, notably UK Sport, the 4 home country sports councils, and a variety of national governing bodies. I suppose why I'm here having this conversation is that one of those contracts since 2000 has been the provision of the analysis contract for the National Benchmarking Service. And so anybody who attends the National Benchmarking Service and Quest conference will see me every February doing my party piece, presenting the results of the latest round of benchmarks from the National Benchmarking Service, looking at how our portfolio of public sport and leisure centres have performed over the last year.
Absolutely. And NBS is, without the rigour that you bring to it, without those researchers that you bring to the party, NBS just wouldn't have the value that it had in the past. And of course, the new monitoring evaluation builds on that, because we've managed to retain some of the questions, we've managed to retain some of the data sets as part of this process. So we'll be able to look backwards, which will be really useful. So what role will the Sports Industry Research Centre take in the new monitoring evaluation platform?
Well, there are 2 things. First of all, we will play to our strengths, which is data analysis, interpretation, and what I'm looking forward to particularly is that opportunity to look at how the sector is performing on a monthly and quarterly basis, and to be able to get that out through webinars and the like. So it's almost sharing the learning in real time rather than waiting to do a party piece once every 12 months.
Yeah.
And enabling the learning that we get from this to reach the 1,200 or so facilities managers who will be taking part in this. So the first thing is play to our strengths. Second thing is deep down, I suppose academics like to show off, and it's the opportunity to say, look what we find out, look what it tells us, look what it means, and how can we use this to enable you to run your business even better.
Because there is going to be some really interesting data sets from this. We're going to have income, we're going to have expenditure, we're going to have participation, we'll have customer experience from the survey that's going out. And you know, if we're going out to 1,200 leisure centres, this is a chance to have a really big sample in there. Of course, the Quest Prime product is going to be used as a sampling exercise for facility operations and things. And we're also going to be able to really integrate social value calculation into this, aren't we? And that's something that I know you guys have done an awful lot of work on in the past, and you've got some real expertise in the social value calculator.
Yeah, very much so. People in my team far cleverer than I am rather, who have produced the social value calculator. I think anyone who is a student of this particular game will have known for many years that by taking part in sport, not only is it intrinsically enjoyable and does you good and makes you feel good, but there are also other benefits that have been claimed over the years, such as physical health, mental well-being, educational attainment, greater social integration, and so on. And what my colleagues have done is to, in the first instance, gather all of the data to demonstrate the various dimensions of social value that taking part in sport and physical activity contributes to. And then the really clever bit is to say, okay, we realize there's a non-market value to these things, but using these methods from economics, we can actually attach a proxy value to it. And therefore, as a result of somebody attending a leisure centre, say once a week for a period of a year, you have an eligible amount of participation, which then drives these social values. So in addition to feeling good about yourself as a part of taking part in sport and physical activity or an exercise class or whatever, there's also this added benefit that is of value to society more widely. And why that's important is because that is what the central thrust of the government's policy for Sporting Future, is all about, where we shifted away from sport for sport's sake and counting numbers to looking at sport for society's sake and looking at the wider impacts. So in some form or other, taking part in sport at your local leisure centre does in some way or other contribute to the 5 outcomes of Sporting Future. And with the research that my colleagues have done, it is possible to put a value on that. And I think, if I remember correctly, the social return on investment is something in the order of, for every £1 of money which is invested in sport and physical activity, there is a return of £3.91.
And does that £3.91, I guess that's an average, is it bigger if you are from one of those groups that have a bigger underlying health issue, or gender or race or ability and disability? Does that value change at all? Is it worth more effectively?
Yeah, it's a bit like schools in a way, where there are schools and there are schools, and we look at contextual variables. And so if somebody who has an underlying health condition or a behavioural issue like vandalism or truancy or whatever engages in sport and physical activity, the chances are the difference in distance travelled is greater for them than it is for somebody who is a regular participant in good health and leads a fairly ordinary lifestyle.
Okay, so that's quite interesting, because actually then if we started almost targeting the social value that we had rather than the number of people participating, it would make us look at those groups that we have the biggest impact on, the greatest distance of travel, as you've just described. And that's one of my hopes for the future of what we do in sport and physical activity, is to start thinking about trying to attract those people who wouldn't normally come, and actually putting stuff on in their environments rather than trying to always drive them into our environments. Do you think the insight, the data, the insight and the intelligence that we'll get from this monitoring and evaluation tool, do you think that will help organisations really start to understand where they should be putting in their effort to get the biggest rewards?
I hope so, because for the most part, where we are successful is in reaching the usual suspects. And if you look at the gradients which exist in sport and physical activity participation, with a few exceptions, it tends to be predominantly males, younger people, the relatively affluent, white British rather than ethnic minorities, people without disabilities. And we can go back to participation surveys such as the General Household Survey in the late 1970s, and whatever way you measure sport participation, those gradients have been persistent, stubborn, and we haven't done much as an industry to narrow them. So the opportunity presents itself to move from the usual suspects to the unusual suspects, and if people begin to realize that there is actually greater social value in taking a slightly differential approach by targeting the offering at those people who will benefit from it the most, that would be quite a seismic shift in industry thinking.
No, absolutely. And as I hope people know, this fund is effectively to be used before the end of March. It's about trying to help make sure doors stay open or can be opened when we reopen. But I'm really hopeful that actually the insight and the data will change, I suppose, those that have the power to add more funds if necessary. It'll change their opinion of us because we'll be able to demonstrate this far better. Is that one of your hopes as well? Would you like to see that?
Yeah, certainly, because the business model at the moment, where the risk for revenue is placed on the consumer through the direct debit scheme, creates conditions whereby it is the usual suspects who are the regular attenders, who are less resistant to price, have the means to pay and service a direct debit. And that creates a particular demographic type of person that uses our facilities. Now, the chances are, whether the facility was there or not, they would find other ways of being able to access sport and physical activity. So the people that we're really after are those who might ordinarily think, oh, that's not for me. But the irony is, they're the people who have the opportunity to benefit the most if they can embrace sport and physical activity as an integral part of their daily or weekly life cycle.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can share as a result of this and sharing good practice from organisations, because we will be able to benchmark based on a site, based on a location, based on national, and within what was the family groups of MBS, of course. So Simon, I'm going to say at this moment, thank you so much for your time today. Really useful, particularly the bit on social value. I think that will really add value to the conversations. I'm really looking forward to working with you. So Simon, thank you for your time. Take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Well, likewise, and thank you, Dave.